We're here in the Highland Sports Alumni Lounge, well, the Highland Alumni Lounge, which probably wasn't here when our inductee, Art Gardenswartz, who graduated in 1960. This Alumni Lounge wasn't here. Art, congratulations on your induction into the 2023 Highland Sports Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be part of it, Ed.
You know, the record that you set, 48.1, technically still stands. You mentioned that to me. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, they run meters now, which is 3 feet shorter than yards. So the record switched to meters, and I had the record in yards, 440 yards. But still it's faster record. So,
Art, you mentioned everybody's talked about what Highland meant to them, and I don't think anybody that we've talked to that Highland pride. You saw how people reacted when we played the fight song at the end. Talk about what Highland meant to you and what it still does.
Yeah, it meant everything. We had a great class, great people, but mostly great coaches. I knew 7 of the people that were inducted as coaches. Mickey, Miller, Hackett were my coaches. Tiny, I knew. They were special people. They knew how to motivate us as young athletes and get us going in a good way. Work ethic, values, and they were just terrific, and it gave me a lot of success in, I think, life.
There's a lot of old school coaching there by Coach Miller. Coach Gentry was here when you were here. Coach Hogue was here, I believe. And I was coached by Coach Hogue, and there's a lot of old school coaching.
I knew Hogan too, Tom Hogan, sure.
But I think that's helped you. You were a successful businessman here in Albuquerque for many years. How did Highland frame that?
It framed it because, as I mentioned, I was a very bad stutterer, and athletics gave me confidence to start working on that. And I also had some failures initially, and I think I learned more from the losses than I do from success. So I use that in my business career, in my personal career, and hopefully I'm giving back to the community now in good ways.
Art, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Back in the Highland Alumni Lounge with our 2023 Sports Hall of Fame, Highland Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Lloyd McPeters. Lloyd, congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
Lloyd, you had quite a career here. 3 letters in track, football, and in basketball. A member of the 1963 championship team. You played defensive cornerback that beat Las Cruces for the state football championship. Played point guard for Highland head coach Tom Hogue here. Got a full scholarship, a full athletic scholarship. You officiated in the RMAC and the WAC and the NFL. Tell us a little bit about how Highland, Art Gardenswartz mentioned that. How did you mention that in your acceptance speech? Talk about how Highland framed you as an athlete and as later as an official in the RMAC and the WAC and the NFL.
Well, as I identified earlier this afternoon, I applied the coaching philosophies and concepts that I learned from Coach Gentry and Coach Miller and Coach Sanchez and applied those to my career in officiating as well as my other career in being an employee benefit broker. And as a result of those, I think they enabled me to succeed in both of those careers. I think of those, being at Highland, not only being exposed to a great program with those 3 coaches, but I had great teammates that were part of the equation too, and you can't dismiss that. And I think that's one of the things that I always remember here at Highland, is not only who you played for, but who you played with. And I know that several of them were here today, as a matter of fact. One guy drove down from Denver to just be here and congratulate me on this. So I was very honored by him doing that. So I just think teammates are such an important part of our life in business or in athletics.
Highland Pride. They talk about Highland Pride, and you mentioned that Highland is. We see the phenomenal athletes that were inducted today. Yourself amongst them. What did you saw the reaction when the fight song played? What did Highland Pride mean? We've asked everybody so far. What did Highland Pride, and what does it still mean to you today?
I had two older sisters. One graduated from Highland in '55. The other graduated in 1960. And so I was going with my dad to football games at Highland and basketball games at Highland. And I just dreamt, I don't know if that's a word, I dreamed of wearing the blue and gold. I mean, that was something that I just always remember. And I remember as a sophomore when we got our uniforms and we got our blue helmets. I mean, that just was, in my opinion, an indication of success is that blue helmet, that navy blue helmet. And I remember taking it home and polishing it that afternoon and starting for 2 days the next day because it was pride that you had of representing the school.
It's funny. I can just imagine how many times you probably put that on and tried it on, because I remember getting my basketball uniform and doing the same thing. How does it look? Lloyd, we appreciate your time. Let me ask you one more question. You officiated, first New Mexico official to officiate in the NFL. We've got Lamb Clark in there now, and he's doing a phenomenal job. What did that mean to you to be the first New Mexico official to officiate in the NFL?
Well, it was an honor to have that. But I think what's important about officiating, and I know sometimes people will ask me, working in the NFL, they'll say, what is the most memorable game that you officiated? And they probably think it's going to be an NFL game, but actually it isn't. I think the most memorable game that I remember officiating was when Texaco went over to play reserve for the state championship high school game. You had a field that had stands that only held maybe 500 people, but yet they said there were 5,000 people there at that game. And you had these players from Texaco, New Mexico, and Reserve, New Mexico, that weren't going to college, weren't going on a scholarship, but they were playing their hearts out, representing their school, and just knowing that this may be the last time I play organized football. And it was an honor to be part of that and seeing these kids playing their hearts out. And I think that was one of my most memorable games I officiated, was watching these kids play for the love of the game.
Who had nothing on the line. Nothing on the line. Probably most of them were not going to go on the next level.
They were not going to go to the next level. Everything they had on the line was just bragging rights of being the state, I think it was 1A champion for the state of New Mexico. That was 1978 or 79. But what an honor.
That's amazing. Thanks, Lloyd. Congratulations once again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're here in the Highland Alumni Lounge. Tom Gentry, the son of Carl Bill Gentry, who was inducted into the Highland Sports Hall of Fame, our first inaugural class. And Tom, you had the honor, of course, of playing for your dad at quarterback. And boy, that's a tough position. Regardless, playing for your dad was an honor. You mentioned today he's a stickler for perfection. And I had we're classmates of 1980. I had some teammates that played, friends that played with you. And Coach Gentry, rest in peace, was no easier on on you than he was on anybody else. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, he was a difficult man to play for in the sense that you were always worried that he was going to get on you for some reason. But he really always preached that you're going to play in the game on Friday night the way you practice Monday through Thursday. And he was a scheduled individual. There was 120 minutes of practice, and he made every minute count. And he could tell if there was somebody in practice that wasn't paying attention, wasn't doing their job, and he had the amazing ability to hone in on that person and get after him. So it was you had to be on point every second.
I've had Fred say that they took a wrong step one way or the other, and you mentioned he's gonna hone in on you, but he was the master of the Delaware wing tee, the misdirection, and he wrote a book about it. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, that offense actually started, I think, in 1974, 1975. Before that, he was running some other offenses, but at the time, not many people in the nation. That was really an offense that was popular, I think, back in the 40s and 50s, and he kind of resurrected that offense. And it's an offense that really requires kind of an orchestrated movement of 11 players at the snap in a very precise manner. Even the linemen, there's a lot of pulling and trapping and things going on. So it's really, and that was really fit him to a T. I think his personality of perfection, of movement, assignments, and it worked real well for him. He was a master of that offense.
How proud was he of your son Zach's a tight end with the Pittsburgh Steelers? I remember Zach, when I interviewed him, he said your dad was the all-time quarterback in the backyard, and I'm like, he's human. I stopped like, wow, but he loved his grandsons very much. Talk about how proud he was that your son made the pros.
Oh, he was, he beyond words. He was very proud of that, and he was just a fantastic grandfather to all 6 of his grandkids, and spent a lot of time at youth sports and not just as a grandfather figure, but he did work with the boys on football and technique and kind of getting them ready for their future. But he was very, very proud of that, and we were just fortunate that he was still with us when Zach was able to get into the NFL.
Tom, congratulations.
Thank you, Ed.
We're here in the Highland Alumni Lounge with former Highland football coach Judge Chavez. And Coach, you had a great opportunity to coach 2 of our inductees, Jared Baxter and Bobby Newcomb. Then phenomenal athletes. They both sent videos. They're both coaching high school football. They couldn't make it here today. You mentioned they're both very different people. But talk about what a pleasure and joy it must have been to coach those 2.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the committee for putting this whole thing together. I think you guys did a great job. I was long overdue. The school has such a rich tradition in athletics, and my hat off to the committee for doing this. But getting back to Bobby and Jared, I was very fortunate to start my head coaching career when having those two as juniors. And what a better way to start your career, having two of the best athletes to ever come out of Highland High School and probably out of Albuquerque in the state of New Mexico. They were both what you'd look in an athlete for. Great students, great teammates, hard workers, first ones on the field, last ones off the field. Never had to worry about missing practice, never had to worry about grades, and never had to worry about getting in trouble, doing all the wrong things. In fact, you knew they were going to do all the right things. And because they did that, their teammates saw that, and they followed in their tracks of doing things right. So not only being great athletes, but great people. And as a coach, when it's all said and done, you look at the players and say, they were great players. But as you get older and you watch them develop, and now both of them in the coaching profession, you're so proud of not them so much as athletes, but as young, successful men out in society. And they're both doing a great job of, carrying on the tradition of being a football coach.
They both credited you with a lot of success. They credited you, both of them did, and I think that's a tribute to what you did here. Bobby's a phenomenal athlete, Coach. Jared is as well. Now, you caught a bad break when Jared broke his leg in senior season, and you and I have talked about this more than once. Do you ever look back and say, what if? And you really can't. You coached at Highland, at Cibola, and at Valley. Does that team there in 1996 sometimes still break your heart of what could have been?
Well, if you talk to the guys and you talk to the coaches who are part of that staff and the players that are part of that team, of course you do. We like to say if we'd had Jared, we would have won it. But, you take away from the teams who did win it and all the other teams that did well that year. It's part of the game. It's part of the game of football. And as Jared said in his video, he overcame adversity. And I think so many times you're a better person for overcoming adversity, things that go wrong in your life, because we all know in life everything's not always going to be perfect. And Jared learned that as a very young individual, and of course Bobby was very successful from the get-go and very fortunate that he never had any injuries. So it was a pleasure to coach them both. They were both great athletes, but they were both very different. Jared was a very joker. If you knew him, he joked about things, always doing, never in trouble, but doing things that were silly and fun and could have gotten in trouble, but never went that far. Bobby was a little more straight-laced, and you never had to worry about Bobby doing anything wrong. And of course, they were both just great kids and great athletes. And what a pleasure to start my coaching career and being able to coach people like that, and then to see them inducted into the first group of Hall of Famers from Highland. I'm really proud of the both of them and happy for both of them.
One more question, Coach. You're a Viking. You graduated from Valley, but you always tell me you loved it here. You still love it here. What did Highland mean to you?
Well, I went to Valley. I still live in the Valley. I coach in the Valley, but people in the Valley don't want to hear it. But I bleed blue and gold because my career would have never taken off if it hadn't been for Highland High School. And I love this school, and I love the years that I spent here, the people that I met, the coaches I worked with, the thousands of players that I coach. And when I say thousands, I've been on for 42 years. You coach over 1,000 kids in that span of time, and my best time in my coaching career were here. And I want to thank all of them affiliated with the high school and the community and the players and teachers that I had an opportunity to work with.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Ed.
We're here in the Highland Alumni Lounge with New Mexico Sports Hall of Famer Gary Sanchez. His father, Henry Sanchez, inducted in the first Highland Sports Hall of Fame in 2023. And Coach Sanchez is also part of the committee. And, you know, you mentioned your father, 10 state track championships, 3 cross-country championships, 13 championships overall, more than any Highland coach there was. And, you know, and that's amazing because there's been some outstanding coaches here, great coaches. Coach, you know, he was a gentle man. He even asked me to run track. I told you, and I was like, Coach, you don't want that. But talk a little bit about the way he coached, and it's okay. Everyone's got a different style, but to this day, a lot of my friends still talk about the approach that your father had while he was here at Highland.
Well, if you'd have gone out, you might not have been running. You might have been throwing the shot, discus, or javelin, you know, something like that. But he did. He coached with a gentle spirit. And when I said, hey, to my sisters, what do you want me to say? And my oldest sister, Debbie, said, you know, just tell him how he was so gentle. He was never a bully, you know. He was compassionate. I think he was hard-nosed on some things, but he knew when to pull a kid in and talk to him. You know, he knew when you kind of, you know, track and field's different. You got to move out a lot and let them go on their own a little bit, but then he knew when to get back in him. He knew how to talk to him before meets, you know, get him ready, and then also kind of just get his teams ready.
You know, you mentioned the love for Highland. If you look at Coach Hackett, Coach Miller, who we inducted, Coach Gentry, all these coaches loved. You do too. You do too. You know, there's still that love for Highland that never goes away. You saw the reaction when we played the fight song. I know the answer to this, but you tell us, what did Highland mean to your dad?
It was a place of home. You know, you look at Hugh Hackett, okay, who got this started, you know, at Highland. Albuquerque High was just the place, you know, Albuquerque High and all. And then you get Highland High School, the new school up in the Highlands, you know, and Hugh Hackett and Mickey Miller doing those things that they did, all right, leading the way, paving the way. You get a young man in the 50s, and he comes in, and this is a big job for him. You know, he's been at the elementary, been at the junior high, and to come to Highland High School, it was quite a promotion, and it was a lot. It had to be a lot of pressure to follow Hugh Hackett, all right, and not let the program go down, but keep it going. You know, there's a lot of pressure, but I think many of the adults, you know, at that time, workforce was quite an honor, you know, and it was very different than it is today, I think, as we know. But he knew that the people, the administration, and like I said, the parents were good to him, the kids were good. He had an outstanding time. It meant so much to him because he was treated well. And I think in turn, he did the same thing. So it was a family atmosphere. This was his home. This was where he got his paycheck, but I don't think there was ever a day he didn't want to come here. And Highland meant quite a bit to our family and to him also.
We both went into the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame together, and you were inducted together, so that's got to mean a lot to you and a proud moment for you, Coach Sanchez. Thanks so much.
Oh, you bet. Thank you, and we'll get this committee. We'll continue it going. People now will know how to get or nominate people for this, and I know you'll let them know too.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You bet. Here in the Highland Alumni Lounge with Pat Hackett, the son of 2023 Highland Sports inductee, Coach Hugh Hackett. What a legend. You coached here at Highland football, coached track, and then, of course, went on to the University of New Mexico and won 8 conference titles, I believe. 41 win streak in track, which is unheard of when I read that. And I had to practice, and I kept reading that. It's amazing. Pat, talk to us a little bit more about your dad. You had a great speech and the induction. Tell us a little bit more about Coach Hackett's time here at Highland and what Highland meant to him.
Well, first of all, when I walked through the doors here, you got to remember I was born in 1950, and that means my dad was here 1 year before I was born. And we would literally, when I got to be 2 or 3, he would go in the other rooms and just let us run all over this place. So that was my first memory. But the neat thing about my dad was that he trusted people, and that's why he, became the person he was. He went from being at Lincoln Junior High, and this is a story for the record books. They went through, I guess, several coaches, and my dad was just out of the Army. He played football for the university for 1 year. He had his one more year to go, and he played fullback for the University of New Mexico. And anyway, they came to him. He was very proud of the fact that he never applied for a job. They always came and got him. Here at Highland, here at the university, they came and got him. But anyway, the story begins at Lincoln Junior High. He applied, or they gave him the position, and the school started talking, we got this coach, this predominantly Mexican, black community down there, and they're saying, we have a white coach, and we don't know what we're going to do for him, or are we going to produce, or what? And he said, went out to word got around school, and it came back to him, and he said, first practice, he called them all to the middle of the field, and he said, I'm going to get on this goal line over here. You guys stay right here. If I make it to the other goal line, I'll be your coach. If not, I get tackled, you stop me, I'll walk away. And my father made it from one end to the other, and that's where the story began. Kids loved him everywhere he went. He portrayed, real athleticism. He loved people. He loved to work with the kids. He had a big family, 9 of us. We didn't have a TV. That's a joke.
Yes, I got that. Yes, sir.
Anyway, the most important thing about my father is his prayer life. He loved to pray. And I brought this picture, and if I'm allowed to show it, I'm going to show this picture. This is a dedication that I have when I coached in El Paso. I kept this in my office, and the kids would ask, what's the story behind it? And I said, well, you tell me what the story is. And they said, I don't know, some old man is doing something over a guy that's laying down. Well, this athlete was from UNM. He was from Africa. My dad had recruited him. And he collapsed in Utah, Provo, Utah. And if you know, that's the home of Mormons, okay? This was in a time when they believed that blacks do not have souls, so there was no way for them to get to heaven. If you look at the picture, my father's actually praying over his injured athlete. It made it the first edition the next morning in the Utah paper. And they talk about it for years because that was a story, and I thank you for letting it be shown that this was a man of prayer. He was praying over. Charles Dramiga was his name. He had collapsed after a race. He turned out to be fine. But that's who my father was. He was a praying man. Taught us how to pray. I hopefully will follow in his footsteps in that regard. But that's what his success was, from prayer.
An amazing career that we talked about. It's just an amazing career, UNM, amazing career. But I think just you mentioning that after the prayer life that he had was just as important to him as anything he did for UNM here or at Highland. Pat, we thank you for your time.
Thank you. God bless you guys.